ago, my inbox practically exploded thanks to all of you, because Sport Auto, one of Germany's leading car magazine, has published its super test involving Chevrolet Corvette C8 Z06. Now, a super test is basically a lap around the Nurburgring Nordschleife to see what the car can do. And many of you have been surprised, I would even say frustrated, that the lap time was, so to say, kind of disappointing.
So if you're not aware who this is Misha Charoudin. Misha is a professional race car driver and drives for Team Bilstein. He's a content creator on YouTube, and if you haven't ever seen his channel, I highly recommend it. But Misha basically drives every manner of vehicle, from kind of the ordinary all the way up to hypercar around the Nurburgring, and has set some incredibly fast times around the ring. And I highly recommend his channel. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. He produces some really good content, and it's definitely a fun watch.
As you can see, a bit of traffic ahead of us.
All right, so real quick, welcome back, YouTube. My name is Jason. I am the GI Car Guy. Thanks for being here. I really do appreciate it. So today we're talking about the C8 Z06. And what Misha is talking about is the most recent lap time that it put down at the Nürburgring by Sport Auto. Sport Auto being a German car magazine that tests and reviews all manner of vehicles. The goal for the Z06 is a sub 7-minute lap time, putting it somewhere in the ranks of the Ferrari 296 or 911 GT2 RS. There's been a little speculation that having the C8 show out at the ring would be a conflict of interest for the German auto industry, which promotes Sport Auto. Having the Z06, a car that costs half the price of a GT3, show up with similar times as German brand Porsche is not ideal for the bottom line. But did they sandbag the lap with the Z06? Did the Z06 hit the mark? Stick around, we're going to talk about it. So the driver that Sport Auto had piloting the Z06 was none other than Christian Gebhardt, a man that has some of the fastest lap times recorded at the Nürburgring. And before I go on, let me just stop and say this real quick. I am not a race car driver. I am not going to pretend like I know what it's like to be driving a supercar near its limits around a track like this. However, there were a few things that I noticed when watching the footage of Christian and the footage of Misha rocketing around the track that I did find interesting. But before we look at these two drivers, I wanted to sort of set the table and talk about what the C8 is so we're all on the same page. This isn't going to be a deep dive into the C8, but rather a discussion about its recent lap times. The C8 is an American sports car produced by GM, though I firmly believe the Z06 holds supercar status. It has been completely redesigned from the C7 since 2020. It is a mid-engine, rear-wheel drive car powered by what GM calls the Gemini small block. This new power plant has a flat plane crank that gives the C8 a less choppy and much higher scream than its predecessors, more like a European engine. Personally, I really think GM did a fabulous job with the C8. I think it's beautiful. I think it looks menacing, looks super aggressive, even just standing still. I think the engine screams and just sounds really, really good. I think it's got all the cool guy stuff in it that you'd want for tracking this thing. And just overall, I think they did a really good job with it, especially for a car that comes in starting at around $113,000 upwards to maybe $140,000, which, you know, is high still. Obviously, that's a lot of money, but I think what you get for it is a pretty ridiculous supercar, and it's an American-made supercar at that. So, anyways, that's my opinion. I think they did a really good job with the new C8. And anyways, with all that being said, let's take a look at the footage of these two drivers and just see how they attack this track. So let me just reiterate, I am not a race car driver, and I'm not going to backseat drive this thing with Christian Gebhardt here, who's obviously professional. But there were a couple things that I noticed with his lap on the Nurburgring in the Z06, and that was how much the steering wheel is moving in his hands. It's almost like there's a lack of confidence in the vehicle or his understanding of the vehicle. I'm not sure what that is, but there's a lot of correction going on as he's taking these turns, and especially in the first one where he definitely goes into the turn at the wrong angle. And you know, it's not a lot of time, but you're talking tenths of seconds, and those add up over a really long lap. 7-minute ranged lap. That's a really big lap of the Nurburgring. Something else that really jumped out at me was that he's not using the paddle shifters, and means he's driving this thing in full automatic mode, which is fine. However, I think the vehicle computer doesn't keep the RPMs up high enough for such an aggressive attempt at a track like this. That means when he's coming out of turns, the vehicle's not bogged down by any means, but it's definitely not in the power band that I think you would want the engine when coming out of a corner. And you'll see what I mean when you watch Misha piloting the Z06, because he definitely keeps the RPMs really high, screams out of the corner, shifts up into the next gear, and he's already in that high power band. And you'll see that in just a second. So as we watch Misha here driving the Z06 around the Nürburgring, what I immediately notice is just how confident he is in the vehicle. If you watch his hands, they're just rock solid on the wheel. Not a lot of correction. He really points the wheel where he wants it to go, where he wants the vehicle to go, and really attacks the track well. I just think he's more comfortable in this vehicle, in this situation, and that's not to knock Christian by any means. I just think that Misha is maybe a little bit more comfortable with his track, and it really shows in the way he pilots this car. The other thing that's obvious is that he's using the paddle shifters, and when he's using those shifters, he can obviously select the gear that he wants to be in, and by doing so, he keeps the RPM range really high, and that allows him to have max power and torque coming out of these corners where he can really push this thing and then slam it up into the next gear, and he's in just a higher power range than if the car computer, the engine computer, is doing the thinking and kind of keeping it more of a moderate RPM range. And that's just what I feel. And my overall opinion is just Misha just looks like a more confident in this situation in the Z06.
We are car guys, and we like to compare cars, and we also like to speculate. And watching this back, even though I did not actively time myself, watching this back on the first lap, or just like use the video as a reference, from Bridge to Gantry, that would have been 7 minutes 23. However, as you will later see, there was lots of traffic. There was, again, traffic here through Flugplatz, so it would have been we're missing here 40 kilometers per hour through the corner at Schwedenkreuz, another 30 kilometers per hour through the high-speed corner, another traffic here. There's even a full, I would say 2 cars overtaking each other, etc., etc., etc. And also, first lap on cold tires, first lap not knowing the car, and doing 720 in these conditions. Watching this back right now, I'm shooting an extra fragment because I'm actually kind of blown away by what the car is capable of. And it did not feel fast at all to me, because it was just so easy to drive.
Alright, so there it is, 7 minutes, 10 seconds for the Z06 around the Nürburgring. And I think a lot of enthusiasts are a little disappointed with that time. However, I think it's pretty close, and I think with the right setup and maybe a different driver, you're looking at somewhere around the 704, 705 range. And, that's okay. GM actually had already released a track time for the Z06 around the Nurburgring, and that time was 7 minutes and 10 seconds, believe it or not. So I think this thing ended up pretty close to where it should be, and regardless of the track time, I still think this is an incredibly capable vehicle. It's beautiful, it's menacing, it sounds amazing, and it looks like it's a blast to drive, and I'd love to drive the hell out of this thing. So anyways, those are my thoughts on it. But what do you think? Is this thing where it should be? Do you think it can go faster? Do you like the C8? Let me know. Curious to know what you guys think. So if you made it this long, really appreciate it. And thank you again for your support. Remember, stay safe, take care of each other, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace. Like them, never keep it real in my face or the carbon sticks. What's them fit for my waves they cut? That's so deep, if they don't teach. Don't feel like always driving on none.
Does anybody even listen to this kind of shit anymore?
What do you mean?
This isn't real music. Hip hop is dead. Dead. Nobody knows how to make real music anymore. Dead. 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 Dead.